Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today's a great day. I am joined by my very special guest, Tessa Kriesel. How are you today, Tessa?
I am fabulous. How are you?
I am great. So, Tessa and I met a very long time ago when I was running a little conference called Revolution Conf. And you were at I'm trying to remember what year you were there. It was either 2018 or 2019. Those were our 2 years at the beach,
Yeah, it was
directly off the
2018.
beach.
Yeah. But good job on your
And
memory.
well, it's one of the few conferences I just have pretty much in the back of my head.
Because it was
And I
beautiful
try
and
to remember
amazing
everyone who was there.
and awesome.
It definitely, and that's what we wanted for it. Like, so everyone's out there who has no idea what we're talking about. Revolution Conf was a conference I ran for 4 years, potentially might do a fifth year. And our venue was right off the beach in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And what I always like to tell people was go to your talk. And if you wanted to take a break, just literally walk out the back door and you would be on the
Literally.
beach. And all the hotel rooms had beach views and you could wake up at 5:15 in the morning to the sunrise. And it was just overall a great, great event. But Tessa was there, and Tessa, now honestly, I don't remember what you spoke on. That's the only thing I'm lapsing
Mentorship.
at the moment. So you remember what you
I
all
do
right.
because I had so much fun. We were kind of talking before the show. Like, I've been to a lot of events. So when I see a good event, like, I know it. And Revolution Conf was definitely one of those good events where if year 5 comes, like, I will be there with bells on,
Yeah.
telling everyone else about it. Of course, I remember I spoke on mentorship. I could probably even be like, yeah, it's like down the hall on the left side because I like kind of remember the path of even the room. So yeah, it was a beautiful
Yeah.
event.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for a year 5. And
Yeah,
once I know, Tessa, you will be next to know. How about that? I promise.
perfect. That would be great.
But that's not what we're here to talk about. Actually, we'll talk about conferences a little bit in the conversation, I think. But
Yeah.
Tessa, for some weird reason, if no one's heard of you, can you give us a spiel of who you are and what are you currently working on?
Well, that's kind of nice of you to be like, if no one's heard of you. I'm sure there's plenty of people who have not heard of me, but that made me feel good. So my name is Tessa Kriesel. I haven't done a podcast since I haven't had an official job title. This is interesting.
Uh,
I was previously head of developer relations over at Snap, where I was working, Snap as most people know as Snapchat, where I was working on the AR side of things with a really cool camera SDK. And so now I am no longer doing that, but have been in the DevRel space for, gosh, a number of years, which has led me to a lot of great developer events. Previous to that, engineering manager and an engineer for a number of years. So tech is kind of in my blood and I've been around for a while. But nowadays I'm actually self-employed and having a lot of fun with figuring out what my revenue streams are going to be for the future. So it's a bit of an introduction on me.
well, so let's go back to your time at Snap. Your departure from Snap, that wasn't by your choice, was it?
No, the sad thing about that, Kevin, too, is that I actually really liked Snap. There are so many tech companies out there, and some of them are great, but I hadn't fallen into a great one yet, and Snap was a great one. And so February 6th, just a couple months ago, got laid off unexpectedly, honestly, because I knew climate-wise in our business that there was a future chance of that happening. I had already watched 2 layoffs. But I had about another 6 months based on some of the strategy and some of, just inklings. And so it really came to as a complete shock because everything I was going through with my strategy for the year was like, oh yeah, we're being efficient. We're going to invest in the things that matter. We're going to hit things super hard. It was really focused on just like truly the deepest impact so that I made sure I had a job. I didn't get the chance to do that. And it kind of just took my feet out from under me, honestly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't imagine. Well, I can't imagine. I've had that same situation, but mine was 15 some years ago. You just walk into work one day and all of a sudden, hey, guess what? No more job. You're done today. And I can
It's
relate to that
hard.
feeling. Your initial next steps afterwards, you find out you don't have the job anymore. You don't have to report.
Yep.
What do you do next?
Yeah. So good question. I will tell you, and I think super excited to be on the podcast because I've always been someone to have multi-threaded income, like, and mostly because I just have all this energy and passion for my work. So I'm like, ooh, how do I get my hands in that? Or ooh, how do I help with that? Or find some passion project that I get pulled into. But Snap was like so great and they had recruited me. And so I gave them this crazy salary that I thought I was gonna make going into consulting. That was my original plan before starting at Snap, is I was going to move into full-time consultancy. I had about 6 months of clients that were committed to work with me. Um, and they came at me kind of around that time when I was laying off the clients. And I was like, 6 months is this. So 12 months looks like this. This is what I have to get paid. And decided to entertain the interview just due to so many great conversations. And long story short, I'm like working at Snap and had no plan to do it, but like it was just such a beautiful salary. I was so blessed, like, and so incredibly thankful. Like I'm saying that with all the humbleness, that I just didn't expect to have happen, right? And so for anyone who's been in enterprise, they can relate to this. You've got stock options, you've got your salary, you have all these silly benefits. I've got like t-shirts and stickers and books and, tech stuff sitting around my desk right now, still with ghost logos on them. And it almost actually makes me a little sad, but also like happy, right? Of like, you just get this nice, beautiful, cushy situation. And, I got really cushy and I had another baby. And so my baby's 18 months old. I have 4 kids. And, I had just this beautiful experience to be able to have a child. And I didn't, dive into multi-threaded income. I just stuck with my job, took my maternity leave, have enjoyed my family. And now I'm like, well, shoot. Here I am as someone who's used to having that, and now losing, my only income. And so, we definitely, I've been through some self-discovery and things, but it's actually sort of like a wake up call almost for me because I did get so comfortable and didn't realize it like, whoa, like life can literally change in like a quick second. I had no idea it was coming.
So is your first step after losing the job, oh my gosh, I need to find a new job? Or when did you make the decision to not pursue the job, to pursue your own initiatives?
Yeah. Oof, that's a really good question. So I am not the kind of person that is just like instantly like, okay, let's do the next, like just do the same thing I was doing, right? Like when
Yeah.
something ends, I take that time to be like, okay, I'm gonna let that, chapter in my life close. Like I'll, sort of recap on it, think about it, let it kind of do whatever it needs to do emotionally and mentally. And then I start thinking about like, okay, well, if money wasn't an issue or whatever the situation might be wasn't an issue, what do I want to do? And what I truly want to do is like help more than one company and like really leverage my experience and knowledge. And like, I feel like I'm good at what I do. And like, I want to help other people be good at what they do. And so getting a job, yes, I can still do all that greatness, right? But it's just not the same. I feel like I can't serve as many people or help as many people. I also did this like cool personality test kind of thing. It's called the M Code. Strongly recommend it. But basically, it's like a motivation assessment tool. So it has you sort of speak to a few different things that have happened in your life. And as you speak to it, it's essentially asking you questions to really bring you back to those moments. And then it asks you follow up around emotions that you had while in kind of that moment again, like what motivated you to do this project and just a variety of different things. And anyways, came back around that I'm an achiever, which I kind of knew because I'm normally I have multi-threaded income. So I feel like I'm just like, Tessa, what were you thinking? But I've realized I'm an achiever, right? And so in my mind, I'm like, hey, if I take another job, like that means working for someone, being kind of tied down to their tactics. And I think the biggest thing that I learned out of this personality test was like sort of how this motivation plays into my day to day. So I struggle when I get boxed in at a company because I want to achieve and I want to win and I want to drive results. And so when I can't, and it's whether it's political or operational or whatever it might be, I really get demotivated. And then I end up in almost like a depressive state, but not clinically depressed, just like not motivated by my work. And so coming back around, no, it wasn't go get a job. It was like, hey, really think
Yeah.
about like what do I want? And self-employment, I think is I hope, I'm hoping and I think I've done it before and I've succeeded before. But I think it's gonna bring me the motivation and the achievements that I need on a daily basis.
I see this continuing thread, no pun intended, with folks like us.
Yeah.
A couple guests ago, someone was touching on a similar point that those of us that are entrepreneurial spirited
Yep.
make poor employees for most types of
Mm-hmm.
companies,
Oh, yes.
simply because we are trying to just go, go, go. And the corporate veil tends to hold us back. And that, like you were just saying, it frustrates us and demotivates us.
Exactly.
And sometimes the solution is, all right, we just got to leave and we have to go somewhere else.
But it
So
stinks
I can,
because either
yeah.
your resume takes the hit or your like career experience takes the hit, so fully. Yeah, I agree.
And the funny thing is you'll have companies out there and go, we really want motivated entrepreneurial type people. And then they bring them in and they just put rules and regulations and red tape all over the process.
Yep.
So,
Like 6 to 12-month procurement processes.
gosh, no, that sounds horrible.
Uh,
So you decided to go out on your own.
I did.
So you decided that, yes, this is going to be a DevRel consultancy. That's the type of work I want to do. How do you find that first client?
Yeah. Ooh, okay, so that's a very good question, but I'm actually gonna, like, work backwards even more from, like,
All
the
right,
first
let's work
client.
backwards. Yeah.
Um, so the last time that I was a consultant, I was successful, but I wasn't reaching the revenue that I feel I need to reach today in the place that I'm at, right? And so I knew that I couldn't approach consultancy, in the same way that I had in the past. I knew that I needed to, be pretty focused and start to figure out who that was. And so thankfully, kind of brought together sort of my own ideas and in working through those ideas, kind of processed like how is that gonna work? How is this gonna work in terms of services and opportunities? And really just got myself in kind of like almost a depressed state. Because it felt super overwhelming. One day I'd be like, yes, this is gonna be my service. This is who I want to go after, and just felt like I knew it. And then it was like, shoot, is that really gonna work? And so thankfully decided to hire an executive coach because I really felt like I was spinning. And so I didn't necessarily like dive in. It was like, how am I going to do this and how do I do it right? And so bringing in that executive coach, the main thing that I really wanted to do was build sort of that educational community, right? We've seen it spin up a
Hmm.
lot since COVID. Teach people what you know. I'm on a great newsletter that's like Tell People Your Smarts or something, I think it is, by John Weiss, I believe. Anyways, it's a good one. But essentially it's I wanted to do that. I just wanted to be like, oh, courses and templates and all the things. Here's how you do DevRel. And I started running the numbers and the numbers weren't aligning. And I was like, well, this can't be true. I need a different angle. Brought it to my coach and he's like, no, that's true. You cannot do that. And I'm like, okay. Turns out that you have to make money from people who have money. And although funny concept, right? Uh, and although my peers make money, and I made decent money, right? But I didn't make the money that I would need in my revenue for my business to reach where I needed to go with my goals. And so, no, I went the executive coach route and was like, okay, how am I actually going to do this?
It's why we're going to title this podcast, You Need to Make Money from People with Money. And that's really hard for folks to understand because, yeah, look at just normal consumers. So if we use buzzwords in business terms, you have B2B, B2C, B to something else. There's a third one. I don't remember what it is.
There's
But
B to
basically, like
D for
B2C,
developers too.
that's right. Yeah. Anything that's not B2B
Yep.
is horrible and awful, and you're never going to make any money off of it unless you have something that isn't necessarily selling to the C. So the C being the consumer. Like
Or it's super
Facebook is
special.
technically, yeah. Like Snapchat probably was a B to C
Yeah.
type thing, but you didn't make your money off the C.
Right.
You made your money off the other
B.
avenues that Snap would put product development into. So
Exactly.
the
Businesses.
advertising
Yep.
and the businesses. It's a good lesson for anyone out there. If you're thinking about building a tool or a product and like, oh, this will really service other developers or other people like me, sorry, you're probably not going to make any money off that venture because first, developers just hate spending money. They
Yep.
hate being marketed to. They hate being marketed to in markety ways. Like you have to be,
Creative.
you have to have some
Inspirational.
strategy and creative about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I
Uh,
agree. I mean, and we had to like work through that, right? Because like I was so adamant that I wanted to work with my peers because I wanted to help them so deeply. And he had to be like, hey, that's not where the money is. And I was seeing that on paper that it was like, well, in order to make the money I want to make, I'm going to have to work
yeah,
for a company as a consultant. And then, sprinkle in some coaching clients who will be my peers, but I have to be paid for a service that provides a value prop, right? And then when looking at sort
yeah,
of my community or these education, and I think actually to get into numbers, like Kevin, I think we talked about before the show that, maybe some numbers is sometimes valuable. So thinking about consultancy, right? Like I wanted to look at 75%, it had to come from there. Like I needed to get somewhere between 13 to 15K per month. What I
yeah,
wanted to, right? To just maintain and continue things that I've already committed to. And so looking at that, it's like I needed a big chunk of that to be consulting. Of course, I can work with my peers, but as we worked through and had conversations about working with my peers, it was like, okay, but I need to do it from an angle of, can the company pay me for this service? Right. So my coaching packages are very appealing for the company, for their hiring manager. I've got, worksheets and things that make it really clear what that value is for someone to pay me for coaching. And then my community, I mean, look at communities around. I mean, what's the most that someone will pay for a community? Yes, you see 700 a month for some crazy, really effective revenue growth communities, right? But we're talking about developer relations where it's already hard to get budget. It's already hard to advocate for funds. So I have to like teach people how to advocate for funds before they would even come into my community where I want to teach them how to advocate for funds. So I realized it
yeah.
just doesn't fundamentally work, right? And so it just has to come from all these different places in order to get to that end place, but also to sort of like fill that like motivation and yeah, all the things that I want to do. I still want to work with my peers.
So in addition to so you had given me a laundry list of different
I
things that
did.
you do to make up basically your monthly goal. And so before we go into that list, what's your monthly goal based off of? How did you arrive to the numbers that you came up with?
That's a super good question. So my monthly goal for my business is 18K. My personal goal financially, I think was like 13.5. And that's just based on current life, current things that we're doing. There are things we can cancel, right? So, you come into these situations and it's like, do I no longer put my child in this optional childcare that, is
Yeah.
extra and above and beyond? Or do I no longer have someone help me clean my house or things like that, right? And I've worked really hard to get where I'm from. I don't talk about it a bunch, but I'm from like a small town of 300 people. I dropped out of college, never really made it in college, and just been like scrappy, And so for me, I'm proud of where I'm at. And so I've set this personal goal to be like, no, let's keep working really hard to like achieve the things that you want and continue the life that I've had. Might not be for everybody. So just want to caveat that, right? And then, from that 13 to 18, that was my stretch goal, right? Of like, how do I get to that 18,000? Because then that allows me to have, I think it was like 2 to 3K a month that I can do in donations. And so I am a big giving type of a person. And
Yeah.
so I like to make sure that whatever is sort of accommodated in my financial life, that I can continue that. And then on top of it, I'm no longer working for a company. So I have to buy insurance. Contribute to retirement, things like that. And so there's this influx of sort of necessary funds that need to happen to be sort of self-employed. So it was me sort of reflecting on what's my financial life? What am I missing that I don't get from an employer? Retirement, insurance, all the medical costs, right? Any other benefits that were beautiful that were offered, like a gym membership. Small, but still existent, right? And then, figuring out sort of what is that optional thing or what's that thing I want to keep doing or like what's the thing I wish I could have been doing that I wasn't doing. And so some of that was adding some of the giving in there as well.
This is something you see from a lot of entrepreneurs, and I don't like using Dave Ramsey isms because some people have a hit or miss
Hmm.
relationship with Dave Ramsey. But
Valid.
you know, in every pile of crap, you have some gold, right? And one thing that always struck me about him is he would say, you can never put more money in a closed palm. So if you're holding on to your cash and you're not giving it away or donating it in some way, shape, or form, you're never going to get more. But if
Yep.
you have an open hand and you're willingly giving away some of your income to those less fortunate, whatever it might be, like you're more positioned to just receive more.
Yeah.
And
I fully believe that
because
too.
I'm the same way, we give away money to a variety of different causes, and
So
it's
important.
it's always helped so much because it makes you really appreciate the money that you're bringing in. Um,
Yes.
I'm
But
with
it
you.
but it's fun too, right? Like my little stretch goal is like, hey, the harder that I work, the more I get to give. And I know that
Yeah.
not all people like have that mentality, but it is something that like I'm so thankful is ingrained in my personality that as long as my children have what they need, my pets have, like fundamentally everyone around me is good, right? Like how can I help the world be better? And do that in whatever way possible. So it's like, hey, yeah, how do I just work a little harder and like make a little more money? And I get to help some new purpose that I just learned about that like I just learned about this homesteader community that's near me. And I'm like, oh, they need help with something. How can I help them?
What's your favorite thing that you've given money to?
Oh, always kids, always kids. So I
Always
like
kids.
to be, yeah, my husband and I, whenever we go on vacation or go do things, like we did Coder Cruise and we would go to the arcade and get all the tickets and stuff. And we'd be like, yeah, we got all this stuff. And that's fun, right? But like, we don't want the like gumballs and weird prizes that you're going to get. So like, we'll go find some little kid that like has minimal tickets or minimal, chances to play. And we'll like just give them the stuff. Cause it's like the smile on their face is just absolutely like amazing. And so I like to browse my neighborhood group or our like local city group.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while they'll be like, oh, I'm trying to do chores and raise money. And so I'll just kind of swoop in and be like, hey, come do, chores for these people. But like, I'm just going to pay for whatever it is. Like if you're going to dance camp or something, I've like got customized footballs made because this kid lost his football at school. So I got him a football with his name written on it. So it's not always like thousands of dollars. Sometimes it's these little tiny gestures that are
Yeah.
they're more emotionally triggering, and that's actually, like, where I love to spend the money, but it just depends on time capacity to put that little bit of effort into my giving that month.
I love the personalized stuff. I think one of my favorite things I've ever done was I had a friend, his puppy died. And
Mhm.
so I didn't say anything about it.
That's
I
so
just did a
sad.
memorial donation to Humane Society.
That's
And
beautiful.
so they have a great form to sign it up and you give them out. But one of the things that they do is they send a package to the person saying someone's given in your puppy's name and it's all the
Oh.
information, which is great. The downside of this, if anyone's out there thinking, is they put you on a mailing list and they send you
Oh.
the saddest marketing
I
letters in the
know.
world
I
because it's
I it is so sad. I've done that before. I'm on that too with, like,
yeah.
like a local abortion clinic, and not all of
Yeah.
that, right? Just I'm not to get anywhere, but just, when women need help, it assists with women. And so I gave funds to just help with, like, women's in that way, right?
Yeah.
But the marketing is legit, and I'm like, "Hey, like, save money and just email me so I can give you more money and it can go to non-postage." But it's sad too, they
Oh,
really get you with it. They know what they're
they
doing.
do. And it's on the envelope. Like you'll get the envelope like, that's the saddest dog I've ever seen in my
I
life. And
know.
you open it up and it's just like puppies in cages and stuff. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
All right. I would give you money to never send me this ever.
I know, right? It makes me sad. It's triggering.
All right. So that's the fun stuff out of the way. Let's talk about
Yeah.
the various ways that you make money and maybe go probably not deep into any one of them,
Yep.
but let's see. We've already talked about kind of consulting and
Yep.
coaching
Yep.
to a degree. I don't think we need to go any deeper in those.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the other fringe benefits of being in DevRel. You have a really
Yeah.
good network. Can you use your network to expand your net worth?
Yes. And you know what? You can. You definitely can. Okay, so I'm gonna get my iPad out because I really did a lot of research on this. So as we like talked about this, obviously I went through a whole discovery process to figure out that I had to do consulting. Then coaching had to be kind of the next thing. And then if I wanted to do this sort of community, right, that still something I could do, but it just had to be deprioritized with my time. So I just have to spend less time on it, but still something that maybe I can get little trickles in, right? And so that's kind of how I see these other things of like, I'm going to do these other activities that are the main income driving activities, but then how do I have this tertiary effect, right? And on top of it, I did a discovery of like, what's the perks that I have working and going for me, right? And I talked a little bit before the show, right? One of it is majorly my network due to DevRel and developer relations. And you're out going to conferences and spending time with people and meeting people online. And it's a very interconnected role. And so my network is very wide. And so I'm like, okay, that leads me into some cool revenue stream possibilities that I'll mention. And then the other side of it, again, something we talked about is like being technically minded. I don't really write a lot of code anymore, but I'm still very technically minded, and look to build solutions when I have problems. But having that skill set and also being, very personable and really enjoying people and like being, kind of extroverted with people, is also a benefit that like it took me a really long time, like we talked about, a long time to figure out like, hey, that's a really good trait and not a lot of people have it. And so in that discovery process, I was like, okay, cool. I've got these things going for me. How can I make more money? And so here's where I have landed, and I'll speak to sort of how they've come to fruition as well. So the first thing that came to mind was the Superfans book. Have you ever read Superfans by Pat Flynn?
I'm aware of Superfans. I have not read it.
Oh, it's so good. Strongly recommended for
Yeah.
anyone who has any form of a personal brand for any reason at all, honestly. Like it's truly valuable for everybody, and especially if you work with customers. So in Superfans, it essentially talks about you're going to have people that are going to love you eventually, right? And kind of use love with a nice term, right? They're fans of you. They like your work, how you write, whatever it is you're delivering, how you're sharing. We see that all the time in tech. And it's this idea of you've got this little army of people and they're ready to advocate for you because they really like you. And so how do you leverage them? And so essentially the first sort of stream of revenue is to just really put that to an actual approach. And so looking at sort of a partner referral program that would actually based on people that like Tessa. Like Kevin, you and I like don't know each other super well, but the conversations we've had have been really great. We've gotten to know each other. We know what some of our skill sets are. If I tapped your shoulder or sent you an email and said, hey, I'm rolling out my business, would you mind sharing anything if you meet someone that could find value, right? And because I reached out to you personally, caught up with you, how are you doing, right? You're going to be like, Tessa, of course. And then now you kind of have this sort of snowball approach, right? So the book talks about even more stuff that you can do, really start to harness this, bring these people together. We kind of, if you're on the call and you've been a part of some big communities or sort of private user groups or things like that, we all kind of know how that goes and how that can operate. But just the first early stages of just kind of tapping those people in your network is just so fundamentally simple to do and so incredibly valuable. So that's the first one is run Superfans on my own fans.
I've heard this term multiple ways. So super fans, your top fans, and basically find your cheerleaders. So
Yep.
if you're out there doing something, who's going to just cheer for you? If we were having a different conversation about just looking for a job, it kind of goes the same way. If you have
For
the
sure.
top fans and super fans, the folks who will just help you any way, shape, or form, and it's not a huge involvement. It's just reposting something on LinkedIn or on Twitter.
Just
Those,
giving them the tactics to tell
yeah,
someone about you, right? Here's the copy.
yeah.
Here's the CTA. Like, here's what you could share. Just enabling them, equipping them. That's a better word.
And then you let that network effect go off
Yes.
because your fans tell people, and then maybe a small percentage of their fans will tell people, and whatever you're looking for, it's about getting the right message in front of the right people at the right time. And
Exactly.
if you don't have any super fans at all, of course, it's really difficult, impossible to do. But
But you can
you
build
don't need
some.
many. Yeah.
Just be great. Help people. And that's how you get super fans.
Yeah. All right. Super fans.
Super fans.
Check.
So this one, and by the way, coming to fruition, has already come to fruition many, many times over. I have 2 consulting clients already, which I'm very proud of. Just started about a month ago. And one of them came from this revenue tactic through a deep and lovely connection. So super, super smart to do. Even if you think you don't have super fans, you have people that like you,
Yeah.
and they'll advocate for you. So tap them on the shoulder and just ask for their help.
People can't
Um,
buy if they don't know you're selling.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep, for sure. Okay, so this one, so kind of tying into sort of my network, right? Like, how can I take my network and leverage that? And I led into, and I have not nailed this one down, but it is one that I've started researching and I have not prioritized yet. Is actually like looking at like recruiter placement. Because I do have such a vast network with my peers, and as I start to work with
Mhm.
companies, I'm going to have that sort of natural connection. I'm planning to integrate it into my services because as a part of my service, I kind of come in and we're like, hey, something's not working with your developer approach. And we sort of work through solving that. And then we create a strategy of how we're going to fix that. And then at that point, it's like, okay, someone has to do the fixing, right? And that's when the company takes over. I'd love to be able to use my network and say, I've got the right person for you to hire that can now take over. And so, kind of this double whammy of I'm working with the company, but I'm able to bring in sort of a recruiter placement fee alongside with that company to bring in the right candidate. And I'm building that strategy. So not only will I make more money, but the company is actually going to find more value because I'm going to hand deliver them the best candidate for that role that we're building together, essentially. And then kind of the flip of that is also the sort of partner referrals from tooling. And so then oftentimes when I'm coming and working with clients, we're talking about, hey, what is your documentation platform going to be? What's your community platform going to look like? How do we connect those together? How do we track metrics? And so I'm recommending a variety of different tools and products. And so I've found my favorite tools and products throughout my career. And I've started working with those kind of products and clients to set up referral programs so that I get a cash, in one case, 20% of the first annual and 5% of the second annual premium for that plan, right? And it's, somewhere between like a 50 to 100K product. So then that little slice gets sent to me and I'm already working with the client. And so it's really sort of this additive to what I'm already doing. Of course, making sure that the client gets the best result no matter what. But hey, if I've got products that I know are tried and true with developers, and I can align relationships with them, then I think it's a win-win all around.
I've seen so many success stories with affiliates, and it seems, to a degree, a little scummy, but it's not like you're picking bad products. You pick good products that will work for people. And I've seen success stories where someone, I'm not going to name names here, but they went off and wrote an article or a series of articles and wrote books and put in links to say, go look at my resources. And the resource would point to different affiliates for, like, create a blog as a developer.
Yep.
And here's a host that we recommend.
Yep.
And it's an affiliate link. So I get a kickback if you sign up for any plan with them. Well,
Exactly.
he was coming back and reporting, "All right, I make 5 figures off this affiliate sale. Like, I just put out this book and a couple of these articles,
I'm
and it
so
just
not
pays for
surprised.
itself
It's
month
crazy.
after month after month."
Yep.
So it's not out of the idea that if you have a handful of these and you have the clout and the network effect
Right.
working for you, you don't necessarily have to do anything at all. You just sit back and count the money.
Yeah. And honestly, I didn't even think about putting them inside of content pieces. We talked about it, but it was because I wanted to teach
Yep.
my tactics. And now I'm like, wait a minute, maybe there's another affiliate link angle with those that are a little bit more self-serve on the payment side. So, see, there's just so much here. Like when you're doing something, and that's like how my brain thinks is like when I'm doing one thing, I'm like, how can I do multiple
Yep.
things? Okay, so then,
I'll give you another tip
yeah,
is when you do
let's do it.
content pieces, if you don't own the content, or
Yep.
maybe you own the gear page or the
Oh,
resources
sure.
page,
Yep.
you can always change the affiliates out later. So maybe an affiliate link deal ends, you can
Yeah,
replace it with another one.
that's
So
true.
if you're getting that greenfield traffic coming into your resources page, you can
Yep.
just direct them to the new affiliate whenever you need to. So that money never stops. It just goes to from a different source.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting too because I write a lot of content, and so I actually didn't think about kind of getting that granular with like the affiliate. Now I have even
Yeah.
yet another one. Kevin, I already had like 8 to 9, I think. So now I have another one. That's so great. So content creation is actually the next one.
Yeah.
Because
All
I
right,
have
let's go.
yeah, like I do that a lot. I do my own content creation because I'm just so passionate about it. But I do a lot of content creation for other companies, right? Who are like, hey, we want your thought leadership personally at our company or that type of content, right? And so isn't as lucrative as working with a consultant, but there is a number of people that I've lined up to write content with, which is a nice one. And so now I just kind of drop more affiliate links in there, and then it's like a double whammy. Look
Yeah.
at us being efficient, maximizing.
But for the content creation, I would imagine that's not the highest value for you
Oh, it's like one of
in
the
terms of your
lowest.
time and energy.
Yeah,
So it also seems like that's the easiest one to give away to someone else. So someone does it on your
hmm
behalf. You take a
exactly.
little chunk of the change. Um, and the biggest thing I find, at least that I've heard from others in terms of content creation, is it's difficult to find knowledgeable people.
Yes.
Like it's easy to find someone to ghostwrite,
Yep.
but someone who knows what they're doing can write a good article is a completely different skill set.
Oh my gosh. So I have to just say this. So the other day I saw this product and it's called Quillaby. And if we want to put in the show notes, we can. I can get the link.
Hmm.
They're a pretty new product, but essentially they go through and you sort of share your voice and your vision and what you want to talk about. And then it goes and does its AI magic and comes back and gives you like an outline for like your blog post. And then if you're like, adjust, perfect. Okay, I'll do that. Then it actually writes your blog post. And then you go through and just sort of like tweak it and
Yeah.
finalize it. But it comes from your voice, your knowledge. And I did it and I was blown away because if I gave it
Gary.
enough, I
Yeah.
know, but if I gave it enough information about me, right? Then it went through and like pulled all the content, right? And in this product, you could also put snippets of copy of your content so that it would start to learn about you as a human so that the content that was written felt like you had written it. So it's a friend of mine that's actually at that product. So Quillaby, I'll share the link. Kind of being,
Alrighty.
I'm dropping not self promotion, but other promotion because I think that when you think about this content creation thing, right? If you are the expert and you have the knowledge, just like you said, you can even run with a product like that and start to just like boom, 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 start creating this content that you can
Mhm.
author, especially if you have somewhat of a thought leadership space. So yeah, look at us. We're just really maximizing this.
Now let's do a callback to an earlier topic
Yeah.
where that is a business that's very much a B2B business because
Mm-hmm.
individuals probably don't want AI to write in their voice,
No.
but a business that doesn't really say they're in the business of writing material, they would very much pay for a service that can write the 90% of it and then save them time by going in and making changes.
It's a starting
That's
place
very
for
much a
me.
B2B.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But even for me, I'm like, it so sucks to hit the paper with blank paper, right? And so I'm like, can you
Yeah.
just like get the juices flowing? And then even if I rip apart the whole thing, at least it got me started and then I got to that beautiful place. And if it is knowing and figuring out who I am as quick as I noticed that it did, I can do content creation for other people and put barely any work into it.
Yeah.
That's the revenue streams I gotta start nailing. Okay, so anyone on the call, if you want me to write content for you.
What your information will be in the notes. People can go look you up.
Right. There you go.
All right. Tessa,
So
what's next?
yeah, so a couple of those are related to that. So content creation is sort of acting like, as someone at the company, right? Oftentimes they're looking for blog content for marketing or whatever it might be. Sometimes documentation or what have you. Kind of other angles there too is like that role is sort of what in my world is like a developer advocate. So there's also this, hey, I can sort of be this developer advocate or your representation for hire. And I see this coming into play more with my clients and this being sort of an upsell to my clients. But I could see where it would come in as just a one and done service of, hey, you have a developer event that's coming up, right? You want to send someone that builds relationships and is bubbly and friendly and loves to hang out with people. And I love to do that stuff. And so it was actually sparked from a conversation where someone was like, oh, I just really need someone to go represent us. And I'm like, oh, you do you? And it's not always something that's going to align. And just like you said with content creation, it's not my top income provider. But it is something that gets to like motivate me. I love to go hang out with developers. I get to see the industry trends, which will speak more to my client and consulting work. I'm building my network even greater, but I'm also getting paid
Hmm.
for it at the same time. So it kind of has like this major tertiary effect. So I still think it's really valuable, just not way up there as my main income provider.
Wow. I've seen it numerous times before where usually at the bigger like industry events, someone will pay for a quote celebrity to just come and hang out at the booth and just
Yeah.
be their person to receive. And sometimes it's like, oh, it's a basketball player or it's this big name in tech is coming. And a lot of times that person isn't knowledgeable at all about the company or what the company's doing.
Right. Right.
And it seems so much more useful to get someone with the network and the energy and the personality who can also talk the talk. And
Yes. Yep.
it seems like such a better conversation.
Yeah. And one thing on that, I will only do it for products that I love. And so it's definitely narrowed down because I won't just take anyone because the passion has
Yeah.
to be there, right? But when it is a product that I use and love, the passion is there. And so Airtable, hit me up. Let's see, what else do I got in my HubSpot, Outseta, Gradual. Kidding. But just, there are a variety of like products, right? That like when you love those products, like we talked about earlier, like those super fans vibes, sending
Yeah.
someone who really is that like power user for you, it can be incredibly valuable. So we'll see where that revenue stream takes me.
Yeah. Anything else?
Uh, yeah. So I think we had the other couple that we had talked about, was like sponsorship, very similar sentiment, right? Of like sponsorship of like attending an event, but then sponsorship of sort of
Hmm.
more of the community work. So that third thing that I really wanted to be my main thing, which is that DevRel kind of educational community, having sponsors for that, right? So if someone can sort of provide a sponsorship, their logo can be there, their target audience is DevRel professionals. If I can create some form of very valuable sponsorship that is low effort on my side, but high value for my end clients of the sponsorships, can that pay for some of my work to be able to build and spend more time in that educational community? And I think that's something that, like, we talked before the show about kind of just triggering, trying to get people to sort of trigger and think through, um, you know, different revenue decisions. And I think that's one to really
Yeah.
think about. Like, if you're really passionate about building that thing for your peers, how can you supplement that, right? If they're not the audience that have the dinero, who has the dinero, right? And how do you bring that into what you're doing? And I think that was one of the angles where I was like pulling at straws. And I'm like, can I get sponsors for my DevRel community so I can still do it? And yes, I can, but I'm still going to be consulting most of my time. Yeah,
We
and I think
see
that's
that
it.
from other people. I famously have talked about Wes Boss is a great example of that, where
Yep.
he'll create a course and it would normally be a maybe $100 course, $300 course if he put it out by himself.
Hmm.
But through sponsorship, he's able to put it out for free.
Yep.
So everyone gets the benefit from the content. And all he really has to do is say, this course is sponsored by X,
And
whoever.
his,
Not really X. I meant just like
yeah,
blank.
yeah.
But
That's
whichever
funny
company.
nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Not
more
Elon Musk.
predictable.
Elon Musk doesn't pay for stuff. Sorry?
And that's more predictable, right? So instead of
Yeah.
rolling out a course and being like, "Oh, can I attract 1,000 users? Gosh, how hard is that marketing? Can I attract one?" Right? And it's my sponsorship. So that's
Yeah.
for me, it's like that's the lean way. And I think that was sort of something that you and I talked about. And I know we've already been chatting for so long, but like that's the last kind of piece for me that I think makes my revenue streams even more impactful is just being incredibly lean. And that's how he works it, right? Of I know I have to
Yeah.
market a whole bunch if I roll it out to consumers. Well, if I roll it out to a business, I don't have to market it as much. And so, how do you find those lean ways of getting to that revenue stream with the least amount of work?
So I think we've talked about at least a dozen or so different avenues or threads of income. And
Hmm.
that seems like a lot for one person. At least in my mind, how do you manage all those different threads going at the same time and maintain your sanity?
Yeah, definitely lean. But I think, how I went about it was like I made this list because each thing came about because of a first thing, right? So when I thought about serving clients in a consulting realm, I also thought about, okay, where are these other places I can make money from, right? And so this is actually where sort of the referral fee and kind of idea of like selling these products that are going to get used by them came about. Is that I ended up getting one of these products as my platform product for my community platform. And they were like, hey, yeah, we know you're doing consulting. So, like, here's what we offer you. And I'm like, I didn't think about this, right? And so,
Yeah.
as I did it, each of these additional revenue streams are just tertiary to my main revenue stream, right? So, as I think about consulting, my focus is serving that client in that consulting gig. And I've got efficiency everywhere I can. I've started building out processes, I've got templates, I've got this is how we do things. Here's meeting agendas already for the same kind of discovery meetings I'll do with all my clients. Efficiency is how I do it. But on top of that, they're all sort of additions. And so as I'm working with clients, I've made it so just simple and built in that it's like, oh, if you're a client and you want me to create content, cool. Here, I'll just add this, right? Or this is another feature. Or it's like, this is, if the conversation isn't a sales pitch that's going the direction towards consulting, oh, but you have these other goals. Cool. Well, I can still help you with some of these other revenue streams. And so I think I needed to be very cognizant about the value that each of the revenue streams would produce, how I double, triple, quadruple dip with each of the situations, and then at which I would pick up one and do on its own, right? Like, do I go represent a company as a developer advocate or as someone who's hanging out at the booth, right? Yes, but likely only if I love the product, because then I know the product, so I'm actually an expert, or they're a client, right? And so it's sort of this making sure that everything is there. We talked about how I have 4 kids and like I live on a
Yeah.
farm, so I've got lots of chores and life is super busy, but there is this beautiful thing called the Ivy Lee method. If anyone hasn't heard of it, strongly recommend it. It keeps you laser focused. And it's really interesting to me when you take a step back and really look at your day, how much time you have in your day, what you want to get done with your day, and staying focused to that, it really just changes everything. And so I try to use the Ivy Lee method. Um, I'll show kind of the blank version of I've got this little pad on my desk that has each day of the week. And on each day of the week, you're supposed to have, or kind of each day, you're supposed to have 6 things that you're going to get done. And each thing should take you
Hmm.
less than an hour to get them done because we know there's always emails and messages and all the things, right? And so the Ivy Lee method, it just helps keep you focused, right? So if I start to lean away from what I'm supposed to be working on, because right now I'm working on a client or I'm prepping for a coaching call or what have you, I can look back on Ivy Lee and it's like, hey, no, you're supposed to get this done because you put them in order. So you get one thing done at a time, check them off, move to the next thing. It's wild just writing down the 6 things you want to get done and how much more effective you can be. So strongly recommend looking at sort of lean processes, methodology, Ivy Lee method, and anything where you're like double, triple, quadruple dipping so that you're only doing that work the one time. That's the only way I do it is by being uber organized.
A big benefit, I think, of that process, and I think you see it in a lot of other complementary processes, is that you have to take a task and you have to break it down into doable chunks.
Yep.
And I
Which
think
is
it's
not
really
easy.
easy for developers or technologists in general. Like, we'll look at a problem and go, oh, that's 2 weeks worth of work. Say, all
Yep.
right, well, it's not 2 weeks on just one task. Let's break it up into individual tasks.
Right.
And now you realize, okay, one task is going to take 20 minutes, but then the next task will take 20 minutes and so on and so on.
Yep.
And what do they say? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And it's really breaking it up into the small doable chunks. And I know it's been hard. It's hard for me to break things up into smaller tasks. I just feel overwhelmed sometimes with a big, it's like, oh, I have to get this big task done. It's going to take me 2 weeks to do it, and go through that exercise of just cutting it up and realizing, oh, just do this little thing, then that little thing, then so on, so on. And
Yes.
eventually you're done and it feels great to finally get to that point.
Yes, I agree. Like the way that I look at it, and the biggest trick for me is like, which each of those things, it's like a 2 week thing. Like, how do you create a roadmap for that 2 week thing then? Or if it's a 1 week thing, how do you turn it into like an hourly thing? And by doing that as
Yeah.
a roadmap, right? So I'll work backwards and I'll be like, hey, here's the end objective. What do I need to do to get to that end objective? And I'll kind of milestone it out. I know these are like natural sort of habits that I have for me, and I'm very thankful for them. But I think that sometimes it's really hard to do that. But when you can sort of see those chunks, find that roadmap, break them up into milestones, start to see the
Hmm.
time, right? And you're like, oh, okay. It's kind of like when we're making a blog outline, right? Like, what are sort of those like headers? What's the points we want to speak to? What are we trying to draw attention to, right? It's just, we just got to break it all down. Not easy to do, though.
The last topic I want to talk about for our time together, we've been talking for almost an hour. It's amazing. Uh, you mentioned that just early in your process, you hired a business coach.
Hmm.
And I typically hear people hiring the business coach much later in their
Yeah.
process. It's you get to the epiphany, it's like, I should talk to someone.
Yep.
What what caused you to reach out to the business coach this early in your process?
Yeah. I think that I went through a little bit of darkness. And I will explain that darkness in just an emotional place. I think whenever I was inside of a role and I sort of envisioned how would I build out my DevRel business, how would I serve DevRel as a consultant, it's just kind of this vision of being self-employed, right? We all sort of have that dream of what if I didn't have a job? What would I do? And so I knew kind of what I wanted to do, but for whatever reason, when I started getting into it and I started planning it, I just kept second guessing every decision that I had spent years thinking about, right? And so
Okay.
imposter syndrome really came in pretty deep. I started seeing that people who were also DevRel consultants and have been doing it for years were starting to market a little bit. And so I was like, uh-oh, if good people are marketing, is there not work? And so I started to second guess whether there was work. It's just like a snowball effect of just toxic fear and self-doubt.
Right.
And when I started feeling that and started working through, it was just like I think a reflection point of like, nope, I need to make sure that someone else is gonna tell me or reassure me that I'm on the right path. And I knew, with that first kind of big thing that I was like, this doesn't feel right. I can't make the revenue that I need. I need to talk to someone about this because I'm in this dark place of like, this is what I want to do, even though the back of my mind's saying, you can't do this, Tessa. And so I think, I'm thankful for the fact that like I was able to self-identify. But yeah, I think it is kind of an uncommon thing. But I think, the more that well, let me just take a step back. Like, why not? Right? Why not ask someone how they do something? Someone who has
Yeah.
years and years of experience. I mean, the person who is my coach, I personally know. And so that's a really great bonus. But I think it's someone who's pushed me and pushed and challenged me, right? Like has given me the hard feedback of like, if you want to do that next thing, you got to do this other thing. And so I think in that sort of emotion and dark space, I was like, there's a glimmer of hope here. And that glimmer of hope knows that I need help to get out of this and to make sure that I'm on the right path. So yeah,
You already kind of answered my next question was, how did you find your business coach? But you already
yeah,
had a connection
I
to
had one.
someone,
Yeah.
because I think this is probably the biggest reason folks don't get a business coach early enough in their process. And I know I haven't. I have friends I trust immensely in business,
Yep.
but not a coach per se. But there's a lot of fake coaches out there who talk a big game but don't deliver, or they have bad or subpar advice.
Hmm.
It's I
That's
always
scary.
thought that's a hard way to go.
Yeah.
And you either have two extremes, right? You have the bad and cheap, and then you have the good and outrageously expensive, totally
Yeah. That's
worth
mine.
their value. But
Yeah.
also, I imagine someone early in their career, let's say they lost their job, they might
Right.
not have the funds to pay for the expensive business coach
Yep.
out of the gate.
Which I don't
But yeah,
myself either. I'm working on my severance. I mean, we had a little bit, right? We've had some money saved and
yeah,
whatever, but like I didn't either. And when my husband knew how much I was paying, he was like, "Oh my gosh!" So just like for anyone listening, I pay $1,000 a session, so it is not cheap. But here's the thing, like, I was looking at basically starting in this, like, depressive state of, like, "Oh, what am I doing? I don't have clarity." And in a matter of 4 sessions, I now have immense clarity. I've able to written my clear messaging for my very
mhm,
targeted micro segment audience that I'm going after. I know who my audience is. I know how to go about them. I know what my services are gonna be. And the nice thing about it is that I think all of us struggle from imposter syndrome. I personally
yeah,
do a lot myself. And just having someone to be like, yes, no, and guide you, right? And the thing about my coach is that he's so good at like just giving me this little glimmer of something and letting me find the rest of myself. And wow, is that rewarding? Because I feel like I found it, even though my coach is actually the one that guided me to it.
yeah.
And so, yeah. So if there's one thing, if you don't mind, I would love to just drop cabopress.com or the event name
Mhm.
Cabo Press. So Cabo as in Cabo, San Lucas, Mexico, and press. And so that's an event that's actually put on by my coach. And that event is where he brings together entrepreneurs or people who are sort of like-minded with anyone who might be listening, multiple revenue streams, probably doing your own sort of thing. All the sessions are in a pool. It's very awesome.
Yep.
You are partnered up with people. So you go to lunch with the same group of people every day and you all talk about your business. You talk about your struggles, your all the things that are going well, what's not going well, and you all help each other. And then dinner has a different tactic and approach each time. And in between, there's sort of this social free time. And so you get to talk about your business with other people. So if you're sort of gun shy about coaching or you don't know how to get started, take it from me. Cabo Press is an incredibly effective event. where you can sort of dabble and put your toes into the coaching pool with your peers, with other business owners like you. So that might be a fun angle to try.
If people don't realize, like small business, like bootstrapped business owners
Yep.
run the best conferences because they are literally like 20 hours of just networking and enjoying the presence of other people. And turns out you are having fun, you're relaxed, but you're also getting immense value from
Yes.
the time spent. I have a collection of friends. I haven't been to Cabo Press. I've wanted to go, and we should talk about this after we hit stop
Ooh, we
because
should.
I have friends related to that event.
That's awesome.
And I didn't realize it till this. But I do a yearly gathering with about a dozen different bootstrapped business owners who are friends of mine. And it's 3 days of exhausting, just talking about our businesses and giving each other ideas. And then we go off into corners and we have side conversations. And it's just go, go, go.
Yep.
And it's not like a developer conference. Like a developer conference is go, go, go. And you're like, oh, I learned something new. I met some new people. That was fun. At the end of a bootstrap entrepreneur get together, it's like, oh my gosh, I just need 3 days to just go work on everything that I've done during this conference.
Don't go home after those events. Just plan your work vacation that's going to be in an Airbnb in the mountains where no one can come and bug you, and knock it all out. Because yes, and your brain is also mush afterwards too, because you're like mind numb, but also so much to do. Yes, exactly. That's awesome. Well, I would love to hear more about that too, because that could be very valuable.
So to tell you the value you get out of this, we did one, and a friend of mine who was a contractor was complaining that he had a contract he needed to raise his rate on, but he didn't want to write the letter because he had been working with him for so long. He was friends with him, to the point where I got up and I wrote the letter for him, and everyone watched me write the letter, and it was asking for like a 30-40% increase in what he was getting paid. And I said, here, just send this. And he sent it, the next day they declined, approved it. And so we got him a 40% increase in his rate, maybe more. We just asked for an outrageous amount of money for him.
Yeah.
And so
sometimes it just takes someone else.
20 minutes.
Yeah, like someone else to just do it for you, because you're too emotionally tied to it, or you're trying to build an educational community as your main revenue stream, and someone's trying to tell you shouldn't do it. It's just, you just need those other people to be like, hey, let me tell you what you're not seeing, because you're too passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tessa, you and I get along way better than I think I even realized before this conversation.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to like super nerd out though, so this has been so fun.
I know. All right. But we're at the top of the hour.
We are.
We need to nerd out some more later, but I think we're going to wrap things up for now. Tessa, any just last words to anyone out there listening who wants to be just like you?
Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. Well, if you want to be just like me, that makes my heart so happy. And if you want to be just like me, you need to help, like unconditionally help other people, because that is truly how I've gotten to where I'm at, is like unconditionally giving both my time, my financial, energy, and all the things, right? So that's number one, I think, the first thing I would say. Second thing, if you want any advice from me, I'm always happy to answer questions, as long as we do it publicly so that everyone else can benefit from it as well. So you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, at me. Let's do it in public. Then the whole world can benefit from our beautiful conversation. But if you want to pay me for my services, I am at tessakriesel.com, or my business is builtfor.dev, which I am like super pumped to get that branding out there, because it's like built for developers, but it's a dev domain. So I'm having a lot of fun with my branding, if you can't tell. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
Excellent. Well, Tessa, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. And hopefully everyone out there picked out something that's going to be useful to them. I know I have 1,000 notes I need to go back through, but we'll definitely have you back in the future, Tessa, because I think there's 1,000 more things we can talk about.
Yeah, let's see.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Hypothesis comes to fruition, right? 6 to 12 months. Where am I at, and what things are actually serving me? Time will tell.
Absolutely. And we'll do it from a swimming pool.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. All right.
We'll do it at Cabo Press if we both go to Cabo Press.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Tessa, thank you so much. Everyone else, we'll see you all next time.
You've been listening to the Multithreaded Income Podcast. I really hope that this podcast has been useful for you. If it has, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you get your podcast from. And don't forget, the conversation doesn't stop here. Join us on our Discord at mti.to/Discord. I've been your host, Kevin Griffin, and we'll see you next week. Cha-ching!